welcome back to the Fallon Frequency Podcast, your space for that alignment, expansion, and unstoppable energy. I am your host, Fallon, and mindset mentor, and today we're diving into something that, like most things we do talk about here, have the power to completely shift your reality. Now, this one in particular, it's pretty sneaky, it's definitely misunderstood, and it is so easy to miss if you're not paying attention. Today we're going to be talking about standards, okay? Not the fluffy kind that you journal about once and forget, not the vision board that you're hoping will magically arrive, but your embodied, energetic, non-negotiable standards. It's the ones where your nervous system is calibrating to, whether or not you realize it. So I want to get into it because once you kind of see standards as your energetic hold and your frequency, you're not going to be able to unsee it. And that is really where, we're collapsing time and the magic is really coming to life. Because the truth is, everything right now in your current reality is a match for your lowest energetic standard. Now, I'm saying this not to call you out, but to wake you up. So I want to start with the mirror of your reality, okay? As you know, your life, everything around in your life, if you look around, is reflecting what's happening internally for you. Always. This is universal law, so your relationships that you have, and this isn't just romantic partners, this is relationships with your family, with your friends, with yourself, your income, your bank account, what you're looking at right now, your living space, your career. It is all showing you where your standard is currently set. So most people don't realize how low their standards are until they actually pause and they reflect and they're like, shit, is this what I actually accept? And yeah, that is. I want you to think of a thermostat, okay? If your standard is set to a certain temperature, it's, your standard set there, right? Whether that be with your relationship or your job or your income or even your health, okay? Anything that dips below what you set as your standard, what you're going to do here is you either adjust the thermostat or you get, used to being cold. So most people, instead of, they accept this lower standard, they accept this lower temperature. So what do? They just put on a sweater and they adapt to their surroundings. But that's not why I'm talking about standards today, because we're here to raise the temperature. So if you ever looked back, easy example here, look back on a past relationship and thought like, wow, I can't believe that I tolerated that. That's an old standard of yours, and that's something that you tolerated at that time, okay? It's like, I remember, if I think about myself throughout my 20s, if we're talking relationships here, I didn't really dabble deep into, dating then. I was a bit of a workaholic, and I think it's because I had a lot of inner work to do. But without even realizing at the same time, I had a really high standard for the type of partner I wanted to share my time with. I was genuinely happy alone before I did attract my love. And honestly, that in itself was a standard that I had unknowingly set. I even remember a really good guy friend of mine, actually one of my best friends at the time, telling me, because I think, obviously it's hard to describe yachting, but you meet a lot of really awesome people and you meet a lot of really not awesome people too. And, men coming into my life. And I remember this guy friend of mine telling me my standards were just simply too high. I was being really too unrealistic in the type of relationship I wanted. And I even remember at that young age thinking what? No. If something's not magic, if someone's not matching my energy, why would I waste my time? I'm pretty happy doing my thing. So it didn't really make sense to me. And it's really funny as well. I've been thinking about this a lot because I hear people, talk a lot about being single in your 30s, which, by the way, I don't know what age group is listening here, probably in your 20s and your 30s, maybe even closer to your 40s. That's still very young, okay? But being single in your 30s is not a bad thing. I didn't meet my partner till I was 33. Okay. And I wouldn't have changed that for the world. I think your 20s are a very, very potent time for you to learn so much about yourself. But I was thinking about these women that are staying single. And it's like maybe these women they've learned enough, they've had enough life experience that they've finally raised their standards. Okay. Obviously, there is a huge difference between blocking people out and setting the tone. But I think setting the tone is what I'm trying to get at in this episode. A great, great example in terms of standards in career, we're going to switch it out of relationships, was the beginning of my time in Australia. So I don't even really know how this happened, but I fell into a job by accident. I was literally at a happy hour sipping champagne at this gorgeous restaurant in Lennox. If you're familiar with Byron Bay Area or Australia, really, really beautiful place, beautiful view of the ocean. And I was at happy hour with a girlfriend of mine. And we ended up it wasn't very busy because it was also during the pandemic or just before, just after. I don't remember the timeline exactly. But I remember chatting with one of the managers and making friends with him and just, chatting about life. And obviously yachting came up. I was in, high-end hospitality before, and I was living in Lennox for a very short period of time. It was just a little stint, and I could walk to this restaurant. So he kind of was telling me like, hey, would you consider helping out? Because we're a bit short-staffed. If you've got some free time, like help out for a few weeks. And me being me and me being the people pleaser, me not having done all the work yet, I was like, okay, let's do it. Why not? Got a phone call the next day, went in. It happened that quickly, honestly. But what was supposed to be a few weeks of my, time in Lennox turned into many, many months. Okay. And like I said, at this time in my life, I hadn't super deep dived into having my boundaries, didn't even know my standards. I was kind of learning everything under the sun. And, I was like, why wouldn't I help out? I've done this for years. I'm pretty good at it. Can't be that hard considering I did it on yachts. So being the people pleaser and being the doer, I ended up working at this restaurant, which, by the way, I had never worked at a restaurant in the past and didn't apply for this job. Like I said, I was just having some bubbles. maybe the bubbles got the best of me and I ended up working here. But I do remember really, really clearly, if we bring it back to standards, one afternoon, one of the managers, not the same manager, I think he was like rushed or stressed about some big party coming in for lunch or something, who knows. But I was doing all these tables as fast as I could, and I remember him actually standing on the balcony clapping at me, okay? Like actually clapped his hands at me. Not in a joking way, but in a way like hustle, hurry up, let's do it, kind of thing. And I had spent, like I told you, nearly a decade working very hard on super yachts, working for billionaires in hospitality. So I knew how to hustle, okay? And this wasn't about speed. It was about respect. And honestly, in that moment, it was like a full body, hell no, that reaction I had. It was kind of like I kept my mouth shut at the time, but I was like, how dare you clap at me? Like, I am a human being. And obviously, as the story would go, shortly after I quit, because that moment showed me I had a standard that I haven't even really articulated yet. I will not tolerate being disrespected at a job for one thing that I didn't even want. I was doing them a favor, for goodness sakes. It was just like, it was this thing where it kind of was like this memorable moment that I didn't even, I hadn't really thought about this moment for a really long time until I started thinking about my standards, but it was a memorable moment. It was drastic enough to make me realize that I was falling below my own energetic line. And sometimes it does take moments like that are sharp, that are unexpected, or even a bit uncomfortable to really wake you up, to remind you of what you're really available for, to show you, the line that you've been tolerating and what your soul's actually calling in. Because that line, that energetic standard, is your frequency. So now, of course, I'm going to bring it into energy, as I always do, and show you how standards are the frequency, right? So our standards, they're not necessarily rules for us. I want you to think of them as the resonance, okay? Your standards aren't your goals that you're chasing. It's really this frequency. I talk about frequency, energy all the time. It's what you're holding, but not what you're just holding in a big moment. It is what you're holding as your underlying current, or as your default setting, let's say. What you tolerate is what you invite. What you expect is what you attract. Now, if we talk about universal law of connection, very, very deeply tied to that law of vibration and the law of correspondence. Law of vibration is telling us everything is energy. You are always emitting a frequency, no matter what, okay? Law of correspondence, as within, so without. So your outer world is responding to your inner expectations, okay? So just like that expectation is a standard. If you say that you want, next level anything, like next level love, for example, but you're literally tolerating bare minimum behavior, your energetic field is confused. It's like, what signal are you saying to the universe? And this is why I always say you can say as many affirmations as you want. Now, I'm not dissing affirmations here, or you can journal, but if the energy behind what you're doing or the energy behind what you're saying doesn't match that, then you're sending mixed signals. You're not actually sending a signal to the universe. And this is why I focus so heavily on your frequency and your vibration, but not just in the moment as your underlying tone. It's like if you say you desire abundance, but you are literally settling for constant stress and constant burnout, your nervous system is calibrated to scarcity. So it really doesn't matter what you're desiring because you're not showing that with your energy. Your energetic standard equals the minimum level your energy is willing to hold. And this is why we raise the bar, why we're raising our thermostat, why we're raising our energy. But we're not just raising it and dropping back down. We're raising it and we're holding it at a new energetic standard. So the minimum level your energy is willing to hold is what your energetic standard really is. Now, again, it's not what you say you want. It's not what you dream about, but what your system's calibrated for. And that brings us to this missing link in so many conversations when it comes to standards. So this is where your energy work is going to come in. This is where I'm like hot and heavy all about the energy. You can affirm it. You can write it down. You can say it out loud. But if your body doesn't believe it, you're not going to stabilize to it, okay? You cannot fake frequency. So your body is always telling you the truth. I want you to listen to that again. You can affirm it. You can write it down. You can say it out loud. This is why I talk about affirmations and journaling, okay? But if your body doesn't believe it, you won't stabilize to it. Standards themselves aren't just mindset. They are somatic. If you are still addicted to chaos or drama or overgiving or proving or playing small, that is your body's set point. Okay? Raising your standards is literally like upgrading your own operating system. You want the new software, but if your hardware, your nervous system isn't updated, it cannot run. And the kicker here is the brain gets addicted to these patterns. So think of people that love drama or love stress. People do. Overgiving. It's not just a mindset, it's chemistry at work here. Your brain is releasing a familiar cocktail of chemicals that are reinforcing this old identity. It's making you feel safe, even if it's uncomfortable. The nervous system craves what it knows. The subconscious loves to be in the familiar. Does not mean that that is what is best for you. And that's why a true energetic upgrade is going to feel super wobbly at first. It just is. That's part of the process. It's learning to hold this new energetic standard even if it feels wobbly. It's not just upgrading, okay? You are rewiring your entire mindset and your system. I think about when I moved to Australia. It's obviously a place that is very near and dear to my heart. But it wasn't like when I moved away, or moved there or moved away. Same with yachting. Loved yachting for the time it was. But when I moved It's not because something's always wrong. It's because my own standard for my growth had evolved, okay? Even though my mind said, hey, this is great, this is more than enough, my soul was like, no, there's more. And it's not like I abandoned joy necessarily. I expanded it. So it's really, really interesting the deeper we dive into this work and the deeper we realize, where we're kind of dropping the ball when it comes to our standards. It's like this sacred no, and having your own self-respect is part of the strategy. Okay, I'm going to say this and I want this to sink in for you. Every single time that you say yes to something that does not meet your standard, you are saying no to something that would. Okay? So every single time that you say yes to something that does not meet your standard, you're saying no to something that would. I want that to land for you. Self-respect is going to be this portal for energetic upgrades for you. When you start saying no to breadcrumbs, whether that be in love, whether that be with money, whether that be with your own validation or even opportunities, the universe is going to read that and it's going to say, she's ready. Like, she's listening. She's not settling for breadcrumbs anymore. She wants the whole chocolate cake or whatever it is, right? So the universal law, obviously, I love laws because they are literally what's running the show. But when we understand them, we can really start to have a better perspective of our life, and we can understand why things are happening the way they are. When we talk of law and cause and effect, okay, this law is always at play, no matter what. Whether we're conscious of it or not, law of cause and effect is always happening. The law of cause and effect is stating that every single action, okay, being your cause, has a corresponding reaction, which is the effect. What you do, the energy behind what you do, the frequency that you are operating from is directly shaping your outcomes. So this is the piece that people often miss, okay? You can be doing all the right things. You can have your gratitude journal. You can have your strategy. You can have your outreach. You could be hustling your little bum off. But if your foundational energy is rooted in lack, you are sending the wrong message. If I think back for my own example here, my first entrepreneurial pursuit a couple years ago, I literally was doing everything right. I was probably overdoing. I was being a doer. I'm a high achiever. I was pushing myself more than before. I was waking up at 4 a.m. and, ticking all the boxes in terms of numbers and what they asked of me. But nothing was really landing. And it really took some deep diving and some rewiring and some figuring out as to why I am doing the things. If I'm doing the things, what's the problem here? And the one main reason is the energy behind it was in fear, okay? At the time, I didn't believe in my own enoughness in this other company, because I was operating in lack like full time, and it showed. It showed. If I look back, even like photos, energetically, I can see that I wasn't showing up as my full potential. And this is what I'm getting at here: is your cause isn't just in your actions. It's never actually just in your actions. It's in your energy and it's in your frequency. So when you're raising your internal standard, not just what you do, but the energy you do it from, the effect itself must shift. It is universal law. And once you begin to live with this awareness, you really do start to play life differently. You stop blaming others and you start owning. You stop waiting and you start shifting. And it's like the moment that you integrate this law into your life, just like any other universal law, the noise itself, because we all have noise, we all have minds that like to spiral, but the noise doesn't quiet down. It actually starts to disappear because you understand these laws. Why? Because your perception shifts, because you cannot unlearn this. Once you have this moment that you realize that every single thought, every single word you're saying, every choice is a cause, you stop giving your power away. And when your mind expands to this level of awareness, there is literally no going back. It's up from here. You would be a coward if you went back knowing all of this information. You'd be lying to yourself. It's like short-term fear being real, but what happens when you align with this and you start operating at this next level energy is going to meet you. The universe is going to meet you where you are. And you're going to see this in every aspect of your life, in your relationships, in your own finances, in your creativity. When your internal cause is changing, your external world is going to calibrate every single time. And when your mind actually expands to this level of awareness, like I said, you cannot go back. You can't. Some energetic anchors to really pull this in for you, to really start thinking about your own standards is simple. You could literally be doing something today and realize mid-moment or mid-action, like this is no longer a match for me. Okay? That can be something as simple as, I talk about the mind, body, everything all connected as one, the way you feed yourself, right? Or if you're, going out partying every night and you just drinking and numbing, it's like, this is no longer a match for me. If I want higher standards, I have to treat myself that way. And it's like, I'm not chasing anything, I'm calibrating. If anything is costing me my energy, it's too expensive. You have to set the tone, not from your past, not from your partner, not from your bank account. It's your energy tone. So I want you to think about those when you do feel yourself slipping into old patterns and let them ground you into your new frequency. And this is work. This is part of the inner work, and it's work that I love doing, but doesn't mean it's not, challenging, because we're constantly up against our subconscious. We're constantly going against old versions of us who are saying like, nah, you don't need to do that. Nah, don't, nah, sleep in. Nah, do that constantly. So we have to catch it, and if I were your mentor right now, which in some way I am through this episode, what I would really begin with, obviously this would be a lot more specific to each person, but what we would dive deeper in as a general start when we're talking about setting our standards to integrate it and how to actually embody our higher standard is I would have you audit your current reality first. Where are you tolerating the bare minimum? Where can you look around at your life when you knowingly, it's pretty obvious usually, where you're tolerating the bare minimum? What kind of conversations are you having? I brought up the diet. What are you eating? Where are you tolerating your bare minimum? And then I would have you name your next level standard, okay? I want you to be specific when you're doing this work. It's not just, I want better. What does that look like? What does that feel like, most importantly? And what does that sound like? Paint a visual picture, because if you're not feeling into your next level, you're not going to get there. You have to match that frequency. And most people listening to this, I believe, have a big vision. They've got a big dream. They want to hit that next level. So they know it exists because it's already energetically been shown to them. Okay? And then obviously embodiment. You want to move, you want to breathe, you want to speak, you want to choose like the version of you who holds that new standard. That's like me choosing, I'm being clapped at. That is not disrespect is not a standard I go for. So what did I do? I made a move. I chose a new standard. I no longer worked there. Okay? Very, very easy example. Or if I think of up-leveling in my life, I'm just playing a bigger game with decisions. I'm doing things that are not what little Fallon, old Fallon, version 1.0 would have done. And tying in as well the law of assumption. You need to assume the identity of the version of you who holds that higher standard. You can't just think she's in the future. She is you now, right? How does she get up in the morning? How does she make her coffee? What does she do? Does she exercise? Be her now. The universe doesn't give you what you want. It gives you who you are. I'm going to say this on repeat until I'm blue in the face. I say it in every episode, I'm sure, in some form, because until that lands for you, you are not going to manifest your next level. It's very, very simple, very energetic, all about universal laws. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Your standards are sacred, not because they make you better than anyone, but because they're honoring the energy of your soul. Your soul being has high standards. You are not here to beg life to meet you, right? You're here to become this woman that your dreams are waiting for. If you've seen the vision, it's there for the taking. So I want that to be your invitation, right? Let go of what no longer meets you. Hold your field so clean, so clear, so high frequency that life has no choice but to level up around you. As always, my loves, such a pleasure. I feel like I was just really drilling in there in that last bit, but it is such a pleasure having you here. It really does mean the world to me to share your energy and to shed light on these areas that I think were pretty dim when we're talking about lighting up our energetic centers and energetic space. And that is exactly why I'm here. And I truly believe that is why this podcast was born. So if you are learning, to set higher standards for yourself, and this episode helped you realize that, I am so happy that we have found each other. Please like it, rate it, subscribe it. It really only takes a few seconds, and honestly, it helps this message get into the right hands of the right people who need it most. So let this be your moment to trust your energy, trust your evolution, never again dim your light to make others more comfortable. I want you to start setting the tone. I want you to set that frequency so that you set your standard. And when you are ready to make those higher standards your new normal, your new everyday, not just something that you reach for time to time, not just something that you're like, hey, I'm going to do that today. Like, I'm going to do that work today. And then tomorrow you just go back to your old standards, but something that you actually live from, I want you to jump in my DMs. You can find me at fallonmichaela.co. Jump into my world, jump into my DMs. Let's chat about what it might look for you to actually raise your standards, and not just raise them, but stay there and find that new frequency for yourself. Because when you do raise your frequency, life has to, by law, meet you there. So thank you again, my loves. It's been such a pleasure. I will see you next week. Bye.